People who succeed in interviews, they don't think about needing to have perfect English. They prioritize structure and self-reflection. They know what they want to say when they go into the interview and then how to say it clearly. And that's what we'll walk through in this video, how to think like a guide so that your interview becomes a conversation that you're leading, not just surviving. Let's start by reframing a common habit. Most people start their interview preparation by typing into Google top 10 interview questions or most difficult questions to prepare for. And while that might feel productive, I think that it usually creates much more anxiety than clarity. You end up with a giant list of what ifs. But here's the shift that I want to offer you now. You're not in a room to pass a test. You're in the interview room to help the interviewer see how your experience fits their needs. And that means preparation starts not with their questions, but with yours. Questions that you take the time to ask yourself before the interview even happens. Questions like, what do you want the interviewer to know about you? What are the most important parts of your career journey? What do you want the interviewer to take away from the interview? Don't prepare for the hardest question. Prepare to share the most important parts of your story. That's what guides do. They lead with clarity, not with fear. By the way, greetings and welcome. I'm Warren. I'm a professional coach specialized in working with non native English speakers preparing for high stakes interviews for professional roles, academic programs, medical fellowship, and residency programs in the United States. What does it actually mean to think like a guide? Let's take a look. A guide doesn't try to predict the conversation. They accept that they have no crystal ball. Instead, they prepare to shape it. A guide filters their message, focusing on those moments from their career past and present that help the interviewer understand their use of relevant skills so they begin to show their skills rather than tell their skills. They don't try to say everything. They focus on what the interviewer really needs to understand who they are, how they work, and what they bring to the table on day one. This isn't about writing scripts, rehearsing, and memorizing. It's about choosing. Strong candidates come across as intentional, not memorized. Remember, you're not trying to impress, you're trying to help the interviewer see clearly. A great question to ask at this point is, how do you decide what to share? And I think that starts with reflection. Instead of listing job titles, tasks, look back at the moments in your career that really shaped you. Pick a project, a challenge, a turning point, and ask yourself those questions for reflection. What did you learn from that experience? What changed as a result of your actions? What does that moment show about how you work? What was challenging? How did you respond? What guided your decisions? What made that project work really well? What feedback did you receive? And what did you do with that feedback? How did you help others succeed? What do you want the interviewer to understand about your professional identity based on that? Of course, these aren't questions that you answer in the interview. They're questions that you ask yourself before the interview happens instead of asking Google for the most difficult questions so that you know what you want to focus on in the moment of the interview. This is how you start discovering what really matters. This is how you start thinking like a guide. The reflection, that gives you the what. And once you've reflected, it's time to think about how you speak. Let me show you the difference. Let's first take a look at a task level response. That could be something like, I made some improvements in our monthly reporting process. And let's compare that to a value level response, which would look more like this. I noticed our reports weren't being used, so I redesigned them based on the input from the teams who relied on that data. Do you notice the difference? The second version, it shows initiative. It shows thought process. It shows value. You didn't just do something, you noticed, you adapted, and you improved something. That's what interviewers are listening for, and that's what helps you stand out and become a memorable candidate. Let's talk about what preparation looks like after you've taken the time to reflect. And here's what I see with many candidates: they spend hours looking up question lists, downloading PDFs, or searching for the most common questions. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I have a course on the 100 most common interview questions and how to approach them. But here's the thing: if you're going to spend time searching for questions, why not also spend time answering them? There is so much benefit from speaking out loud. And if you're already answering them, even to yourself, do that. Speak out loud, even if it's just alone. There's something so powerful that happens when you move from thinking to speaking. Ideas become clearer, weak spots become obvious. You get to hear when you're rambling, when it's difficult to communicate an idea, and you also hear when your point really lands. So start small, choose a question, speak your answer out loud, and then take some notes. Not a script, just bullet points that outline the content of your ideas. Start by speaking. After all, it's a lot easier to come up with ideas to say when you've already spoken them. Writing is linear, speaking is dynamic. Be open to your answers changing. They will. This is evolution. Just make note of that evolution within your bullet points and keep speaking. That's what effective practice for an interview really looks like. Not starting with Google and writing down answers, but starting by speaking. You don't need perfect English and you don't need to memorize anything. You just need to give your brain the chance to hear the case studies that you've identified as most relevant to share at least once. Your goal in preparation should be not to know the questions that you will be asked, but to identify the most relevant and compelling information you want to share in your interview. So if you're already searching for questions, take that next step. Speak your answers out loud. Then listen to what you've said. That's where the real growth happens. Let's bring it all together. When you think like a guide, you stop chasing questions and you start building clarity. You stop reacting and you start choosing. You stop performing and you start connecting. Because the real job of the interview itself, it's not to prove yourself to the interviewer. It's to help the interviewer see your value. And how do you do that? You do that by choosing what matters, by reflecting deeply, by practicing out loud, and speaking with clarity, not just confidence. Strong candidates don't prepare for every question. They prepare for the right conversation and then they help build it. If this helped you reframe how you think about interview preparation, like the video and subscribe if you want more grounded, strategic interview guidance, especially if English isn't your first language. And if you'd like support in identifying what to say and how to say it, you'll find a link below to explore Omni Interview's coaching and training options. Wherever you are in your preparation, you're already building something strong. You didn't come this far just to come this far. Don't stop. Keep going.